Hi, this is Teddy, and today you're listening to Kate Schroeder from Ohio on Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Demcast Podcast Network. Stay home and save lives.
Are you listening?
Hi, everyone. This is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Demcast family of podcasts. And I am on today with Kate Schroeder, who is running for Congress in the Ohio 1st District. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Kelly.
So thank you so much for joining me. The nice thing about podcasts is we were already always recording remotely. So for us, nothing's really changed here. But campaigning has changed quite a lot. So first of all, just start with a little bit of background. Tell me some about yourself and why you're running for Congress.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. So I'm born and raised here in Cincinnati, and I grew up in this family, second of four kids. And we were a family that was very focused on service and helping others. Most of my extended family was in healthcare. My dad was a physician, my mom's a nurse. I always was a systems person and wanted to work at that level. So I spent 3 years in politics and policy out of college, focused on healthcare. I worked with Senator Evan Bayh in DC and City Hall here in Cincinnati. And that was, 99 to 02. And I thought, holy moly, not much gets done. And so let me go get my business degree and be able to flip between the public and private sector. So that's what I did. And I've spent now 15 years working in healthcare, including 12 years in global public health, 2 years living in Zambia overseas. We moved back to Cincinnati 7 years ago, and I've always stayed involved in politics locally and just have felt recently, in the last several years, that it's not okay to be on the sidelines anymore, that it's really important. I'm deeply, deeply concerned about the direction of our country, and I feel like we need more people who are focused on bringing people together to get things done, people that are low ego and know how to de-escalate. I am a mom. My kids are 5 and 7. I de-escalate every day, maybe 100 times a day now during quarantining. And I think we need more of that in politics, honestly. I'm deeply passionate about the issues and healthcare in particular. Not only have I worked in it my whole career, but I also am a Hodgkin's lymphoma survivor. I had it when I was 33, went through chemo, and have had one of those days in life when your survival is dependent on access to healthcare. And so that is very personal to me. And I am running against someone who's voted over 50 times to take healthcare away from folks, who's voted against coverage for pre-existing conditions. And that's not okay. So I am fired up to raise my hand and run for Congress in this district. We've never elected a woman before. I am up against a incumbent who's been in since 94, lost one term in 2008. Got back in 2010, but there was a poll just at the end of April, and this race is within 1 point. So I am fired up to continue working and really bring better leadership to this district.
Yeah, so for our listeners who don't know Ohio as well, tell me a little bit about the 1st District. I think people think big city, surely that's, a Democratic district, but Ohio, of course, is super gerrymandered. Cincinnati's split right down the middle in these 2 different districts. So tell me some about the 1st.
Yes, thanks, Kelly. So the 1st District, it's the Cincinnati area, and then a northern county, suburban county just above it. So Hamilton County, there are 2 counties in it. Hamilton County is where the city of Cincinnati is, and that county is chopped in half. And half of that is in this district, and then the entire suburban county up north, Warren County. So overall, it's 40% urban, 50% suburban, about 9% rural in this district. And it also has 20% African-American, is the highest percent of African-Americans represented by a Republican in Congress. So that is a really important group as well. And I think, this is a district that there were folks, Ohio, I don't know how well you know the politics here, but there's gerrymandering all over the state. In 2018, we passed a state ballot measure to address gerrymandering, and these districts will be redrawn in 2022 following the census. So they will be more fair then. So there are a lot of people lining up to run in 2022, but not many people wanted to take it in this last cycle, which is how I got in. I said, I raised my hand like, it's not okay. I really don't think, it's not democratic the way this is. It is a winnable district. And and I'm fired up to be out there proving it every day.
Yeah, my brother lives in the 2nd district, so just over the line. So yeah, you just had the primary fairly recently. You won the primary pretty handily. And Ohio had this weird, it went back and forth. We're going to have the primary. No, we're not. It's going to be in person. It's going to be by mail. So tell me a little bit about what that is like, doing campaigning, not knowing exactly when the election is going to happen, how it's going to happen, what that's going to look like. How do you keep going in a campaign like that?
It was very surreal, I will say, as a candidate, because Ohio has a Republican governor, DeWine, and a very strong lead, Dr. Amy Atkin, for our health department. And they've been doing these daily press conferences every day leading up to our initial primary date of March 17th. And every day they were talking about the measures that were being taken up to March 17th on, how to address the pandemic. And they'd say the election's going to happen, but here are the other changes that are being made in, with restaurants and schools and everything else. Well, then the day before, it was just hours before, it flipped 3 times that night before on whether the election was on or off, because the governor recommended postponing at 3 p.m., but it's really the courts and the state legislature that have the decision, or that have the authority to do that. And the courts and the state legislature both ruled that evening that the election was on, and then ultimately it was closed for reasons of a public health emergency. The polling locations were closed, but the election was technically still moved forward. So it was crazy as a candidate. We did not even know that evening whether to inform voters and our volunteers if the election was happening or not until 10 p.m. when it was final. So that was just a really unexpected situation. But then once that was clear, the state legislature came back a week later and made it mail-in only for another 6 weeks. So as a candidate, you really have to be flexible. We had already, a week before the original day of the primary, moved everything digitally, doing a lot of texting, doing a lot of calling of voters, making sure that everyone that was registered knew how to vote, because it was a 2-step process in requesting a ballot, receiving it, and then sending it in. And so we spent 6 weeks, pivoting our field to be incredibly targeted on that digital, with the phone calls, with the texting, and really doing a lot of Facebook Lives, educating voters and finding new ways to get the information out there. It was a lot of good lessons learned for what we need to do to prepare in November as well. But not as a candidate, it's not what you expect, and then on election night, you're sitting by your computer with your family. It's not the election night party that you typically have, but it's, everybody's going through the same experience of, a pandemic and unprecedented times. And so we adapt, and it's still doable, and it only underscores the importance of why we're doing this.
Yeah. So, and there was actually a fairly good turnout in that primary, especially on the Democratic side, a lot more, also unopposed on the Republican side, but still a lot of Democrats turn in ballots on the primary. So that's promising.
It is very promising. The northern county that I was talking about, the way to win in the 1st district is sort of running up the margin in Hamilton County, where there are more Democrats, and then in Warren County getting to at least 35% of the vote. And in this primary, we just had 40% of Warren County voted Democrat, which was up. It was up from 23% in 2016 and up from 7% back in 2012. And so it's just been huge growth in Democratic turnout up there, which is a really, really promising sign.
Yeah, definitely. So you are a mom. You mentioned your kids are 5 and 7, and we know there are not that many moms of young kids in Congress right now, and it would make a huge difference if there were more, but obviously there are big challenges. running for office with kids. I imagine your kids are old enough to understand what's going on and get excited about it too. So tell me some about what that's like, especially right now when you're all at home together all the time.
We are all at home. They love it. They're still at an age where they want to be around me all the time. So for them, this is a big win. They love that we have 10 more meals together every week, and it's a lot of dishes. But it's a challenge. It is a challenge. It's a team effort. My husband John is super supportive. Would not be possible. We are constantly juggling, and I'm grateful for my campaign team for being understanding of what that's like, because I do have to lock my door, and if I forget to lock my door, there's often, visitors that will come in the middle of a call, but they're generally pretty good. I mean, one of the things they love doing, the festivals and the parades and the things like that. So that is disappointing that we don't have that in the same way that we typically would in a campaign season. But now that we've been doing all these videos at home, it's funny, they've learned, oh, you're doing a video, Mom? Can I? And I'll, if they're expressing interest and say, do you want to be in it? And I'll give them like one line, or else, they can introduce themselves at the start of a Facebook Live, or we have a morning check-in with my team. And if they want to say hello to the team on Zoom, they can before they go down and start their schoolwork. So it's about finding ways for them to feel part of it, even in this new way. But it's a challenge. It's constantly, a struggle. And I think like a lot of parents, my big battle is screen time, where, I rely on it to get things done. But then as a parent, you feel guilty that they're watching too much screen time. And my son is obsessed with the show Wild Kratts, my 5-year-old. Yeah. So we've been learning. I mean, the amount of animal facts that I know. Last night at dinner, he's telling us about the platypus has a sixth sense. Who knew? They can assess like electrical currents, the things that we just learned, so many random animal facts.
I love it. Yeah, my kids really want me to run for office, and I keep trying to explain it's really time consuming, and I don't know if you want that, but
right. Well, it's funny. My kids start referring to me as Kate for Congress sometimes.
I love
They'll
that.
see a sign out, and they're like, "Oh, that person knows Kate for Congress." I'm like, yeah.
So you mentioned you've been involved in public health for your whole career. Obviously, this is a moment at which it would be really nice to have more people who know something about public health in our government, in Congress. So talk to me some about, first of all, what does that mean? Sort of what do you bring if you came to Congress, but also sort of what you would like to see the government doing, the federal government doing to really help us in this moment.
Yeah, there's a lot more we should be doing. I think testing is at the top of the list. I mean, one of the things I think is just being, and this is what I could help bring, is being somebody who can help de-escalate. This isn't a partisan thing. Like, there are basic measures that we can take in response to a pandemic like this, and to prepare in advance and need to have, systems in place. I think some of the things that we learned after Ebola, measures were put in place. That's when the global pandemic response team was put in the White House, because they realized over 20 federal agencies are part of the response. And if you don't have a coordinating point in the White House, it can become very uncoordinated and scattershot. The fact that was dismantled was a mistake. The fact that, we had put CDC researchers in China so that we could be working with them on the ground in the lab, so that when situations like this occur, you're not reliant on the diplomatic channels, for the formal channels, for everything to come back. You can be part of that early response and seeing it to prepare in advance. So I think there are some things like that where in the preparedness we certainly need to get in place. I think you need more voices that can help speak and communicate and know the language of public health and can be champions talking to the public on it as well. I think given where we are now, some of the things we really need to prioritize are further scaling up of testing. I mean, this is one thing where, the way we reopen the economy, the public health response and the opening of the economy are interrelated, right? The stronger the public health response, the sooner we reopen the economy. And that is because if you can really invest, prioritize, scale up testing and contact tracing, we can focus our quarantining efforts on those that are exposed and infected instead of the whole population. And that is, what we need to do, yesterday. It's got to be our top priority. And I think we need to continue, beating that drum. I also think on the PPE, 95% of the personal protective equipment is made overseas right now. One opportunity that we have here, and also helps to create jobs, is let's scale up some more of that production in our own country. It will help put people back to work given our growing unemployment. And it also will allow us to have more control over the supply of that. And we really need a coordinated federal response on the PPE so that states aren't competing against each other and driving up the prices through that competition. You need a federally negotiated price based on volumes that states draw down from. That's desperately lacking. And we need more support to state and local governments. Here in Cincinnati, the cities had to furlough 1,700 employees, including initially members of our health department. I'm on the board of health here, and there are a number of members of the health department that were furloughed for a bit. They are now back. But that is cities, because of the decreasing tax revenues, are struggling. And this is, it's police, it's fire, it's, all of our city services. And so we have got to really get support to our local and state governments. Initially in the first round, it only went to cities that were 500,000 and above. And Cincinnati's below that. And there are a lot of cities and communities below that desperately need support. So that's something we need to keep pushing for.
So you mentioned public health shouldn't be this partisan issue. Obviously, we should all want to protect people. I think the other thing that's been sort of weird and troubling recently is that wearing a mask seems to be a partisan issue that people are sort of politicizing. What are you seeing I know you're probably mostly at home, but what are you seeing in Cincinnati and in the first district sort of in response to that? I live in Chicago, and so most people are wearing masks and have been for months now. But, what does that look like where you are?
Yeah. Cincinnati is Midwestern as well. I think, people are sort of no nonsense. I understand that some people, it's hard to wear a mask, when you are a very social person and that is your way of greeting people and you can't see somebody smile. I understand. I find it hard, right? I'm a public health person. And so I think it's important to understand why, there's a natural resistance to it. But then once you understand that, if everybody was wearing masks, we would be able to decrease transmission by 60%. And that's important. So it's not about me, it's about what's best for our community. And I think Midwesterners and people in Southwest Ohio here, we understand that. And so there is that on social media and some of that out there. But I think most people, if they understand that it's not necessarily about you, we understand you're not sick, but you're helping to protect people around you by, being part of this culture and wearing this. And then I think the more we have leadership that is consistent in what the messages are, the better off we'll be on that. And that is why we need more people with public health, because from a data and, public health perspective, let's listen to the clinicians. They are the ones that know best how this disease is transmitted and what are the best measures that we can reasonably take to minimize that. And so I think really continuing to empower the medical folks as opposed to politicians in this is important.
So Ohio is starting to open up a little bit more to, businesses and restaurants and things being open. How do you make decisions as a campaign, sort of what does make sense to do, what doesn't make sense to do, how you go forward with the campaign, knowing that there's probably going to be sort of constant changes over the next few months about how open, we got too far open, now let's close back up, so what does that look like for your campaign from now to November?
The campaign is in a constant a constant exercise of flexibility, which is a good muscle to stretch for all campaigns. So I think we are planning for flexibility, and we want to follow the guidelines, in our state and in our local communities here. And things are starting to open up here. There's a sense, certainly outdoor activities where folks are socially distanced are what's starting first. And I think, there's evidence that there is very little transmission outdoors. So I do think where people are distanced. So I do think that is an area where, it is generally safer the majority of transmission seems to be in, enclosed indoor spaces. We do not have plans to go back into our office anytime soon, even though I would love to be there. We will be waiting until, things play out more and we see what it's like in indoor spaces. We've become a completely digital campaign. So even the media interviews that I do now are outside. And I think, we're going to continue to follow the norms and the guidance in this community and certainly not try to get ahead of that, but really be a voice to educate and get the norms and guidance out there. And then we will adjust our campaign accordingly. But it's a fun way to also get really savvy on the digital elements too.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything else that you would like to make sure we talk about?
I think we've covered a lot. It's been, it's interesting. The experience of going through this pandemic, if you told me a year ago, this is what our campaign would look like, I never would have believed it, but it really does reinforce for me the importance of this. I think, as a public health person, I'm really disappointed with it. I mean, disappointment doesn't even begin to capture it, our response. And it's like, we just need people that are there to do the right thing, that are going to these offices to serve, to not make a political point, to not make it about you, but to go and serve for our communities and help. We have so many problems that need attention locally, federally, at the state level, and we need more people that go there that are low ego and focused on just helping and bringing us together and de-escalating. So I do, despite everything and despite this being, not what we expected an election year to be, it is, that I have fire in my belly for this, that I really believe in it. And I believe fundamentally that we need more women too. So I'm excited to do this and grateful to be on your show. It's fun. I'm grateful for you guys being, out there with women talking about politics, because we need to make it as women, okay to talk about politics. I think there's generally a sense among women sometimes that, politics is too tension fraud, or they want to skirt around it. And part of the reason we're in the situation we're in as a country is because we don't have enough women's voices at the table. And so I think to find ways where it's comfortable and okay for women to engage, because they do care about the future for their kids and civility and decency and responsible leadership and values. And so I'm grateful to have this opportunity to really, be one voice that's helping to bring people together around that, and particularly women.
Excellent. And if people would like to help your campaign, how can they do that?
Yeah, kateforcongress.com. We are always looking for support, whether that be your talents and your time. And anyone can help now virtually, because we're so virtual, you don't have to be in person. And donations as well. We're not taking corporate backed donations. I'm relying on individuals to make this possible. And so really kateforcongress.com, and would love to engage with anyone that might be interested.
All right. Excellent. Well, Kate, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I'm excited about your campaign, and I'm excited about anytime there's women running for office, and especially when they're moms of young kids. So go get to Congress and make it easier for moms.
Thanks, Kelly. It's great to be here.
Thank you for listening to Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Dimcast Podcast Network. Our theme song is called Are You Listening, off of the album Elephant Shaped Trees by the band Immunuri, and we're using it with permission of the band. Our logo and other original artwork is by Matthew Weflin and was created for use by this podcast. You can contact us at twobroadstalkingpolitics@gmail.com or on Twitter or Facebook at Two Broads Talk. You can find all of our episodes at twobroadstalkingpolitics.com or anywhere podcasts are found.